In this video, we're going to discuss the FAFSA, which stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So each year, the federal government gives $150 billion in aid in terms of grants and student loans to U.S. citizens and eligible non-citizens to help them pay for college. And so the FAFSA form is the form that unlocks all that aid. That's the form that you have to file in order to be eligible for any of that kind of aid. And so it's the most important part of the financial aid process for U.S. universities. And even if you're an international student and you're not a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen, you're an international student, you still might have an incentive to apply for the FAFSA, because even though you won't be eligible for that $150 billion in federal aid, the university might use the FAFSA in determining whether you're able to get some institutional aid. That's aid directly from that college. So everyone has an incentive to fill out the FAFSA. It's really the key to the whole financial aid process in the U.S. And the FAFSA ultimately is just a form. It's just a form that you fill out, and you can fill it out online. If you go to fafsa.ed.gov, you can do the whole process online. You can fill out a PDF online and then print that out and then mail it in. Or you can get a paper-based copy from your high school or from a library. You can get a paper form and then mail that into the federal government. And so basically what this form is doing is you're going to put your financial information and your family's financial information. You're going to enter all that information onto the FAFSA. And you're also going to talk about like your family size, how many people in your household are going to college, and so forth. You're going to enter all this financial information. And now, bear in mind, if you're determined to be an independent student, so then there's several questions on the FAFSA. Were you ever in foster care and so forth? If you are classified as an independent student, which the FAFSA will determine based on how you answer those questions, then you don't have to include your family's financial information. I should just note that. But in general, your financial information, your family's financial information, and what I'm talking about is income, assets that you have, et cetera. And basically also when it say family's financial information, it's talking about your custodial parent. In case your parents were divorced, is the parent that you live with the most the past year. And so it's going to look at the income and the assets in determining something called your EFC. EFC, expected family contribution, you just see it abbreviated EFC. And it's a measure of what you and your family ought to be able to come up with in order to pay for college on your own. So if you're incredibly, incredibly wealthy, your EFC is going to be very high. And if your family is a very low income, you might have an EFC of 0, right? So you might just, basically what the government is saying, hey, look, we've looked at your income and assets. We really don't think your family can afford to be able to pay for college. And so that's actually going to be a good thing when it comes to getting financial aid and qualifying for this federal aid, because then you can qualify potentially for a Pell Grant and this SEOG grant, these different types of grants, and then even some student loans. And so basically what the FAFSA is doing is ultimately trying to figure out how much you and your family, like what's your ability to pay for college and how much aid should you be eligible for. And it's also going to determine, just in general, whether you are eligible for federal grants and loans. And you might be thinking, well, hey, we already talked about it. Maybe I'm a U.S. citizen, and of course I'm eligible. But there's a caveat to that. There's a caveat to being eligible, is that certain things, let's say you defaulted on a previous student loan and you haven't paid that loan off yet, then you could not be eligible for federal grants and loans. If you were convicted of selling drugs while you were receiving federal aid, that could prevent you. You should check each year. It could be different, right? The federal government could change things, the eligibility status, so you should check into it. But certain people that will not be eligible, even though they otherwise might be because they're a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen. So you want to look into, basically the FAFSA is going to ask you questions that are going to determine your eligibility and your EFC, which is going to be basically part of this thing called a student aid report that is going to be sent. It's going to be sent out to the schools to which you're applying. So each school has what's called a federal school code. So there's some number associated with that school. So let's say you want to go to the University of Illinois or something, right? So there's going to be a school code for the University of Illinois, and you're going to put that on your FAFSA. And you're going to do it for multiple schools if you want to. You put down the federal school code, and then the federal government when it comes up with all this information, your EFC, everything, it's going to send it to those schools, that the ones that you put codes for on the FAFSA. And so then those schools are going to use that information in coming up with your financial aid award package, otherwise known as your offer, your financial aid offer. So the financial aid office is going to come up with this offer, and then say, hey, look, we looked at, or we got the information from the federal government for this FAFSA, and we see that you are eligible for a Pell Grant, and so this is going to be part of your aid package. And then the institution might also use that information to determine whether they give you institution-based grants from their own university. Now, in terms of the timing of when you fill out the FAFSA, you want to fill it out on or after January 1st of the school year in which you plan to attend. So let's say, just hypothetically, that you are applying in fall 2021, that's the year you're going to be attending, then you would want to apply on or after January 1st of 2021, right? And so any time, the sooner that you can apply, the better. And you should actually check. Some universities might say, okay, well, look, we need it by January 31st in order to be able to determine your aid. So you need to look at each specific university might have their own deadline. And so you want to get the FAFSA filed as quickly after on or after January 1st as possible. And to do that, you're going to need your tax information and your parents' tax information. So you might need to get on your parents about filing their tax return and stuff, because the FAFSA is going to use some information that is also used on your taxes. And it's also whether you file a 1040 or Form 1040A or 1040EZ. These are different types of U.S. tax returns. Based on that will affect the potentially the computation of your student aid, or whether you're eligible for this thing called a simplified needs test. And so basically you're going to get your tax information, and as soon as you can, on or after January 1st, you want to file the FAFSA. It is completely free. And again, you can file it online or a paper-based form, and this is going to be the gateway for unlocking financial aid at a university in the U.S.